right now, personally, myself, I'm just waiting for this moment to change, which I know is going to change any minute. It could happen literally while we're doing this, but I think it's going to be a little longer. It's relative to the earth. All the changes that we're talking about and that I have been talking about in all these things are all relative to one primary change, which is the axis of the earth and the wobble that's in that axis, which takes 25,625 years for it to go around one time. That number I just gave is what the Mayans say it is. When we had it in the 1800s, we had it at about 25,900 and something, and it wasn't correct. And at the year 2000, they used everything they know and all their fast computers and everything else to try to figure out what it was, and they came up with 25,700 and something. But really, the Mayans have been studying this far longer than we have, and they got it down to the minute, actually, the second. But it's 25,625. Well, that cycle is, as I've talked about in the classes, is half female and half male. So for about, let's say it's 13,000 years, halfway around. And the females go toward the center of the galaxy. They move toward the light. And then when they get to the point where it starts to turn and go away from the center of the galaxy, our consciousness is turned into the darkness. And it's the males that come in at that time to protect us in the darkness. Obviously now when you get to the ends, and it's true for both males and females, when you get right to the last 1,000 years or so, the males get totally crazy and the females get totally crazy on the other end, and the males go, oh yeah, you can't do that, and they take it over. And right now, that's what's happening. So the precession of the equinoxes, which everybody that studied this work anyway knows, it's this cycle, but the cycle is divided into two pieces. The part that is the most distant point away from the center of the galaxy, and the part that is the closest to the center of the galaxy. Everything, right now we're at the bottom of this thing, and we're just turning, and we're about to go toward the center of the galaxy. All our movements now are toward the center of the galaxy, but it won't be for a while before we're really going that way. And then when you get to the other end, it switches again, and the males take control there and come back in. But now you're moving away from the center of the galaxy, and so our consciousness is facing into darkness, and that's why the males come in to protect the women and the children during that time. But again, when the males get to the very end of the cycle, which is where we are now, the males go crazy. And that'll happen with the females too. When you get up there, they will do exactly the same thing. They will become something that they don't want to be, but they are, and then we have to take over from there. But it is not, I want to say one other thing, it is not a circle going around and around. It's a circle that is a spiral. And so we make very subtle changes every time we go around that thing, and we become more aware, more conscious.
So each cycle is different.
Yes. There's a lot of things that are similar. This is why things repeat themselves very much, even in the cycles of just going back to like 2014. When you asked about Melchizedek consciousness, it is something that is within every single living being. We have that connection already. And it's not that they're special or anything else. They're no different than anybody else, except that they have gone through certain trainings and things, and they found it, and then they got into it, and then they became one with it. And it's a natural process. It isn't anything.
There is a lot of talk today about the preparation of this change. And I want to go back to, we mentioned it many times, and it was something that we talked about the heart and how can you be prepared for all of this, and it's so simple and it's so easy and it's so beautiful.
The heart is essential. It isn't even like a nice thing or something. It's more than that. It's primary. It's deeply innate in consciousness, and there could be no life forms without the heart. in the ones that this particular way of breathing air and having blood. This is something that is, it begins with a heart. A human baby begins with a heart.
Yeah.
Their cells, it depends on who I'm talking to in this audience, but the heart is, we start as a single cell, then it divides into 2 and 4 and 8 and 16, 32, 64, and goes on. And when it reaches 512 cells, it becomes a toroidal field. And that's where I left it when I'm talking about it in the ATIH teachings.
Mm-hmm.
But we now know that toroidal field goes on and becomes the heart, physically the heart. And the heart exists without any other human part. It becomes just a heart all by itself, circulated within itself. And then the tip of the tongue comes out, and that's the part that's proof of the connection between the tip of the tongue and the heart itself. And then arms and legs come out, and one of the last things is the brain. And when you end up with a human body, and the heart starts letting the blood move everywhere. But that's the physical heart. But inside that, because it's so primal, there are 2 toroidal fields, which I now know where they come from. I didn't know perfectly when I was teaching before, but that's information I can't get into now. But we do understand why there are 2 hearts and 2 areas inside the heart. There's a toroidal field in the heart, and there's another littler one inside of it. And that in that space is everything that is needed for human consciousness to evolve into the levels that we are going to right now. The brain, when it connects to the brain, that is a big deal, because then other things are turned on in you that were not turned on before, and all those things lead also to the same thing where we're going now. And we're at the end of this now. We have entered into the female cycle with the male still holding on by the fingernails and, trying to keep it together. Pretty soon that's going to break, and the females are going to come forward, and they're going to take over the world. And it's supposed to be. And in fact, we couldn't continue without that happening. But we're going to leave this cycle before that gets very far into it. We're going to we will do it inside the female cycle because it's a lot more coherent, and that's the reason why we're doing it. We have to wait till that chaos of that male cycle is over with. And that's when, talking with the Mayans, they had no idea when this cycle was going to end. They knew exactly when most of them were going to end, but they didn't know when this one was going to end because they've had no experience of it at all. And we've seen the blue star that came in, that started this cycle in 2007, on October 24th. I think that's when it was. And that became the largest object that was ever entered our solar system. It was bigger than the sun. People don't know that. You can go into astronomy and actually prove it to see that it's true. And so now what the Mayans are waiting for is the red star, which probably, in my opinion, will be a certain star in the sky that's around the belt of Orion. There's something they name Betelgeuse is another name, I can't remember.
That's a big one.
Yeah, and it's going into a supernova right now. And it's so close to us, though, that when it does do it, the vibrations from that explosion will vibrate the entire world. And that's what the scientists believe, anyway, that will happen. And that is when that actually when we actually see that star appearing in the sky bigger than the sun, then we're going to realize that is the beginning of this new cycle.
Wow.